Hello world, welcome back to Art with Honesty, and today we're going to be going over something that is well known in the art community, and that is art pet peeves. Now, most people have pet peeves, but what's special about these is they're specific to art, and today we're going to be going over my art pet peeves. Surprisingly, it's a long list, so we better get into it. So to make this easier for viewing purposes, I've broken it up into two categories. My art pet peeves when it comes to doing art, and my art pet peeves with the art community. We're going to get started with my art pet peeves when it comes to doing art. There isn't that many, but they really irk me. So I hope you really enjoyed listening to me complain. So my first art pet peeve is cleaning up after doing traditional art. So picture this. You've been drawing or painting or whatever for hours and hours and hours on end. And usually when I'm doing traditional art, I only finish sometimes like midnight, 1 a.m. in the morning. Because, I always get like a burst of energy or a burst of creative energy at nighttime. So I've been painting and drawing and I've been doing it for hours on end. And now it's time, the painting's done, the drawing's finished, and I have to clean up. Ugh! So frustrating, especially because if you're painting, you can't leave your paint palette or else it's going to get all crusty and then it's going to be even harder to clean the next day. So it's 1 a.m. in the morning and I have to clean up my paint palette and my paintbrushes and like my workspace and everything because guys, you have to be tidy. And I just want to kill myself because it's so much work at like 1 a.m. when all I want to do is really just go climb into bed because the painting's already finished. So what I usually do is like I pour some water, I leave my paint palette in to soak there. Don't leave your brushes to soak overnight. That's going to ruin your brushes. And then I wait like maybe 15 minutes and I come back and I quickly clean it. And then it goes really quickly. But it's the act of having to do that when it's really late at night that I just hate. It just gets to me. Then another art thing that I despise is everyday artists draw. We love to draw, right? But some days, and these are the days where it just feels like the world is ending, is when I call it when the brain to pen ratio is broken. When you want to draw something, you've got the motivation and you start drawing and nothing is working. It's like your hand. You've swapped out your hands. You're not suddenly drawing, instead of with your right hand, you're drawing with your left hand. It just won't work for you. And you're like, every other day, I draw perfectly fine. But today, suddenly it's an issue. I just don't get it. Another thing that I hate, so I feel like every artist has a part of the process that they despise. Whether that be the sketch phase, the line art phase, the coloring phase, the highlights, the lowlights. You know what I'm saying? Every artist has something, part of the process that they absolutely despise. And my thing that disgusts me, I guess, is line art. I still do line art because I like my artwork to look clean, and also I use the line art section to kind of refine the sketching section. So for me, line art is just like refinement of the sketch. So because I want to get to the coloring as soon as possible because that's my favorite part, but I hate line art. I understand people love line art, like to them it's their favorite part with the nice brushes and they're like, smooth, For me, no, absolutely despise line art. Then another thing that is more digital, I guess, is accidentally drawing on the wrong layer. Oh my goodness. I guess it's not as frustrating for me because I do like to do a lot of my work on the same layer. But oh my goodness, how annoying is it drawing on the wrong layer? Like you've got your sketch, you start doing the line art's looking clean, especially since I hate line art, and then it's on the wrong layer and you have to do that all over again. Oh, so frustrating. I think that's why we should name our layers. But even so, sometimes like you accidentally click on the wrong layer because you were trying to check like how's the line art looking without the sketch behind it, and then you click on the sketch layer to hide it, and then you start drawing again and it's on the sketch layer. We all get it. It's a pet peeve, I think, of most artists on digital work is like drawing on the wrong layer. Then another thing that I think is maybe more specific to me, or maybe it's not, I hope you guys can relate, is when you get a great idea, like you have been creatively blocked or something, and you get a great idea late at night when you're going to bed, and you don't write it down, and you can't remember what that idea was the next morning. This has happened to me so many times, and it is so frustrating because I know the idea was fantastic, I just can't remember it. Then another traditional art pet peeve is when you're painting and you have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and you accidentally dip your paintbrush into your tea instead of the water. Oh my goodness, this has happened to me so many times. And the worst bit is when it's like a fresh cup of tea or even a fresh cup. Like you've just got this cup out of the cupboard and you dip your paintbrush in the cup and now you have to get a new cup and you've dirtied a cup for no reason because you just couldn't put your paintbrush in the water. This has happened to me so many times and it's so frustrating. And then I guess one last traditional art pet peeve that I have is losing your art supplies. Guys, I will have like a full mental breakdown if I lose my art supplies. I lost brushes because my friend accidentally took them home from uni work. Like we went to a uni class together and she accidentally took my brushes home. I came home and cried. I thought, oh no, I've lost my brushes and I'm gonna have to buy new ones. And like, they're not even expensive brushes. It's just the fact that I lost them, which was like upsetting to me. And I feel really bad for my friend because she was so apologetic. And I was like, no, it's not your fault. Like, it was an accident. But yo, I was so upset, especially since like I was already having a kind of rough day. And then like losing my brushes was the last straw. And then I just started crying. Losing art supplies, especially since if they're expensive art supplies, is so frustrating. Like, even if it's not your fault that you lost them, maybe someone stole them or something, losing them is so frustrating because you're like, you grow attached to them in some way. It's kind of like your baby at that point. And artists, we try to scrape every last bit of that art supply out of that, like every last bit of paint out of that tube of paint, every last little tinsel out of that brush. And so when you lose it, and it's, especially if it's newer, oh, it's heartbreaking. So finally, we get into the art community pet peeves. So, okay, I love our art community. We are so supportive, we are so encouraging until we're not. One of the things I've heard a lot from the art community is this insert style isn't real art. And okay, obviously, this excludes AI quotation marks art. It happens a lot with different artists, especially with different styles, like people who think hyperrealism is an art because you could just take a photograph, or anime style is an art because it's too childlike. A lot of people have their opinions about what is true art. I think that most of the art community can agree, though, that modern art isn't art, but I digress. There is always going to be an art style that someone else doesn't think is real art. Never mind the fact that whoever that artist is, they probably put in a ton of hours to learn how to draw in that specific style or in that kind of way. Like hyperrealism is really impressive because what do you mean it's not a photograph? Or anime style is really impressive because how can you make something look so beautiful with such a simplistic style? Like I've seen some really beautiful art anime style pieces. There's a reason why anime art now, art in quotations, is so heavily based off anime style art because anime style art is beautiful. I particularly don't find modern art appealing. I don't find geometric shapes appealing. I don't find just splashing paint on a paint canvas appealing. But it is art to someone. And I think that's important to acknowledge that just because you don't think it's art doesn't mean it's not art. I mean, I don't like certain styles either. And that's okay, because that's my opinion. But to claim that someone who put in a lot of work to learn how to do art is creating something that they enjoy and then you say that's not art, it's really, really offensive. We all hear that argument, learn the rules before you break them, and most artists do try to learn all the fundamentals before they start doing their own thing. And so that's a lot of years of study that went into learning how to be an artist and learning how to do it properly, I guess. And now they're doing it for themselves, and that should be acknowledged and appreciated. Then another art pet peeve that gets to me a lot, and I've heard this argument many a time, is the idea that art is talent. Art is not talent. Art is years and years of study. When you're a little kid and you pick up a paintbrush for the first time and you start drawing, some people just don't stop, okay? I'm not great at sports. I suck at sports. If a ball was flying towards my face, I would not be able to catch it, okay? It would probably hit me square in the face and everyone would have a good laugh. I once tried to kick a soccer ball and I tripped and the soccer ball didn't even move, okay? I tripped and I fell square on my ass and yeah, I suck at sports, okay? But if I was a kid, kept going with sports, I might have been better at sports. It's like you saying people who play rugby, for example, or soccer or football. I don't know what you guys call it. We call it soccer in South Africa. If those you telling me those people have just talent, they're not working their asses off every day to become better rugby or soccer players, it's the same argument. I mean, sure. Let's say that some people are born with a natural affinity to a certain subject. Doesn't mean that they have talent for it, okay? We all start at the same place. We all start by drawing stickmen, and then some people, artists, enjoy it so much that they stick with it, okay? So saying, oh my gosh, you're so talented. Wow, I could never do something like that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can, okay? We had a subject that was a fundamental for everyone this year. It was called Drawing a Narrative. You can see my book of drawing a narrative in my video about my first year at art university. Some people have never drawn or never picked up a pencil since they stopped as a child, okay? And some people in this 1 year of learning the fundamentals, of learning how to draw, were doing so well. They had so much growth at the end of the year. You do not have a lack of talent, you have a lack of motivation. You are just being lazy when you say, art is a talent and I could never do that. Yes, you can, okay? I am a firm believer that art is not a talent. It is just pure enjoyment of it. So much so that you have to go through all the work it takes to become a very good artist, okay? Art is not a talent. You are just lazy. I'm not great at art. I'm not the greatest artist, but I did have to learn a lot to be at the level I'm at. If you compare my art from like years ago to my art now is so much better. Why? Because I worked at it, okay? You are not a talentless person. People who use this argument, especially for like oh, I have to use AI because I don't have talent. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You just don't want to try for it, okay? You just don't want to become the greatest artist ever because you are lazy, all right? So stop trying to take our jobs. Stop trying to destroy the planet. I'm getting really heated. I'm sorry. Art is not a talent. It's skills that you learn, okay? Some things are a talent, like being a genius. That's a talent, okay? That's something you're born with. You're born with a high IQ. But even then, if you do not develop that IQ, you can become as boring as the rest of us, okay? So art is not a talent, it's a skill, and you can learn it. You just have to be willing to and have the passion for it. If you don't have the passion for it, that's okay. I don't have a passion for sports, but that's okay because I have a passion for art and I'm willing to put in the work to become better at it. If you do not have that passion, that's okay. Leave it to the people who do. But then find your passion and become better at that passion and then give that to the world. But do not take away someone else's passion. That's rude. Sorry for getting a bit heated there. I think let's just rein it in. My next art pet peeve is when there's an artist that thinks they're God's gift to humanity. We've all met this artist. We've all probably had a class with them, or if we've met them on social media. They think everything they create is perfection. They think that they're the greatest artist that's ever walked this earth. I admire their confidence, okay? I think, wow, that's a lot of confidence for someone whose art I consider to not be that great, all right? Because I've seen a lot of art. I love art. I love studying art. I love looking at art. I love a couple of artists, like especially like one of my favorite channels is Drawfee or Cat and Chat, and I hear a lot about art, okay? So what do you mean that you think your drawings are the most wonderful thing in the world, okay? Because I've met someone who was like this and their art was okay, okay? So I admire your confidence. I admire your willingness to put yourself out there, even if your art isn't that great. I'm struggling to learn that skill, but I feel like you should rein it in a little because that confidence is now shaping up to be arrogance, especially if you're not that great, you know, like you're still learning. Then I feel like, why are we this confident, you know? Again, I admire the confidence. But now it's shaping up to be arrogant, and I think we need to stop whatever this is before it gets out of hand, because it's getting to the point where you want to punch them in the face. Then another art pet peeve that I have specifically, and it's an art pet peeve that I think a lot of artists have heard this joke before, would you like fries with that? In our current day and age, if you do not have a degree, you are practically worth nothing, even though going to college is really expensive. And some people would call it a scam, all right? But if you do not have a degree, you can't really get your foot in the door to become like an executive artist at like some company where you're doing product design or advertising or even illustration, you know? The people, when you tell people, hey, I'm studying art, you know, I'm really enjoying it, they go, would you like fries with that? you're just like, okay, so funny. It's not like I've heard this 1,000 times. And it's, you wouldn't say that to anyone else. If someone was at college, doing football, or studying science, you wouldn't say, oh my gosh, would you like fries with that? Even though nowadays it's getting harder for all people in all careers to find a job. People in the tech industry are struggling to find a job because it's oversaturated. People in the science industry are struggling to find a job because unless you have like honors or a master's, you're not going to get in. And then if you have anything higher than that, then you're overqualified, and then it's like a whole thing. And so you've been studying and studying and studying, and now you can't even get a job. This little joke is dumb. Okay, because the would you like fries with that argument is stupid, all right? Because I'm pretty sure even if they wanted to hire me, they probably wouldn't be able to because I'm too overqualified, okay? Because I have a degree. And you have to get a degree in this day and age. So when people are like, oh my gosh, I'm studying art, and then you're like, would you like fries with that? Stop. Just stop. Then I guess this is just a personal one for me. I don't think a lot of people have this art pet peeve, but my art pet peeve is when people are doing something digitally, like they're drawing on a drawing tablet or they're drawing on their phone or, anything like that. They're drawing on an iPad and then they don't use an artist glove. Ew. Gross. Well, you mean you're touching your disgusting, dirty human oils on that lovely, clean digital screen? Why are you doing this to me? Gross. If I see this, I immediately scroll away because I'm like, ew. But that's just a personal thing for me. I know maybe not a lot of people actually have this art pet peeve. This is just a personal one. But I thought I'd throw it in there because it is kind of like, to me, it's funny. The fact that I get grossed out by people not using an artist glove when they're drawing digitally. Everyone has their own way of drawing, so I can forgive you for not using an artist glove. Then another art pet peeve I have, and I guess this one might also be very specific to me, and this is also specific to people who are in art university, there to learn. Why are you arguing with the lecturers, okay? The lecturers are trying to teach you, unless it's a valid argument. Listen, I will allow some leeway if it's a valid argument, like they stiffed you a couple of marks. That's not cool. But let's say a lecturer is trying to teach you, for example, the industry standard. And they're saying, okay, you have to do it this way because this is what they expect from you when you get into a job one day. And you go, no, I like it this way. Blah, 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 blah. Shut up. Okay, you're there to learn. Why? You can always do it your own way when you're at home, okay? Why are you there arguing with a lecturer, okay? This is dumb, all right? Because why'd you pay all this money then to come and have this person to just argue with them? Okay, you could have just paid for something. You could have paid someone to argue with, okay? It's probably cheaper and there's probably services for that. Okay, so for me, when people go to art university and the lecturer is trying to teach you something that is maybe industry standard or is maybe how you're supposed to do things or maybe just what the assignment is, just do it, okay? Because when you finally get that job and it's not that way, then you can have fun with it, okay? When you go home and you draw for yourself, then you can have fun with it and you can do it the way you want to. But why are you at our art university just to argue with someone, okay? That's dumb. This is maybe a bit more personal, but I feel like if you're just gonna argue with your lecturer when they're trying to teach you something, I don't like these people. Why are you like this? And then I think this is a two-parter. So for me, it's the people who give you criticism and then they go, oh no, but it's constructive criticism. No, constructive criticism is pointing out something specific in my drawing that you think could need improvement. One of my lecturers, what he always would do when he was trying to give us constructive criticism, and I loved the way he did this, was he would be like, I think the left eye feels like it needs to be bigger. He's telling me that the left eye needs to be bigger, but he's doing it in such a way that it makes me kind of giggle because he's telling me that the left eye feels like it needs to be bigger. So it's kind of funny because it's like, how can the left eye have feelings? Ha ha ha. But also, it was so constructive, okay? Because you're telling me something specific that is wrong with my drawing that I can fix. When someone gives me criticism and it's just criticism, that is not constructive, okay? Because I've heard, I don't like this drawing. Something's wrong with it. What is something, okay? You gotta be specific. Or it needs more contrast, or it needs better lighting. Well, I guess better lighting is a good constructive criticism thing to give. But the better contrast, where does it need better contrast? The thing as a whole? I can't redo the contrast in the thing as a whole if it's something that is traditional. It means I have to redo the whole thing. And then I'm just going to do it the same way again because I don't know where exactly would the high contrast need to be placed. It is not constructive if you are not giving specifics. It is just criticism. And criticism hurts. It hurts artists and it makes some artists want to quit. Criticism is you're just being nasty. I've heard that I've shown someone my artwork and they went, I don't like it. Okay, thank you. I'm never going to show you my artwork again. And then you're like, oh my gosh, you never showed me your artwork again. Yes, you've lost those privileges. Okay? Don't expect artists to also take your criticism if it is not constructive. I mean, artists don't have to take constructive criticism, but it is better if you do. I don't like people who just give criticism. I also don't like people if I show you my artwork and every time I show you my artwork, you have something to critique about it. Some days I just want you to tell me it looks good, okay? Some days I want you to tell me, hey, there's nothing wrong with it. Unless I specifically ask, hey, I feel like there's something off about my artwork, but I've been staring at it for too long, so I'm not actually sure what it is. Can you maybe point it out to me? Hey, do you mind giving me some criticism about my artwork? Unless I specifically ask for you to give me criticism, I do not want to hear it, okay? Then, like I said, this is a two-parter. So my other pet peeve is with people who can't take criticism, okay? Constructive criticism. I'm not talking about the criticism where you're just criticizing. Constructive criticism where you're pointing out something that is wrong, okay? I hate constructive criticism, but I am willing to take it, okay? There has been many times in my first year at art university where I have had to take constructive criticism, which it meant that I would have to redo a large portion of whatever I was working on. And you know what happened? You know what I did? I cried because there goes all my hard work. But then I took in their criticism and I redid it and I reworked it until my lecturer was happy, because the way I see it is my lecturer is training me on how to deal with clients. So if a client doesn't like something and isn't happy with something in my work, and that is easy for me to change and doesn't require me starting over, then I should change it because they are my client and my whole job is to make them satisfied and happy, unless they're an unreasonable client, but that's a whole different topic, okay? So people who can't take constructive criticism, I feel like you're not going to be able to grow, because constructive criticism is healthy. It is going to help you notice what are your weak points, okay? I struggle with drawing side profile. I know this is a weakness of mine. So I took some time and I learned how to do it. And whenever I would do it, I'd ask for some advice back. Another thing, when we were learning how to do fabric, the first attempt of me doing fabric looked terrible. My mom pointed it out, said the fabric doesn't look good, showed me some paintings of fabric from, for example, Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci, showed me how they painted fabric, said have a look at this, see that they don't do that much coloring. Like I was using every other color. She's like, you only need like one or two. And I cried because I had been working on it for hours. And then the next day I came back to it, I redid it, and you know what? It looked better. Okay? So I feel like constructive criticism is a good thing and it's healthy and it's going to help you make your art look better. So don't give criticism unless it's constructive. And when you get constructive criticism, learn how to take it, okay? When I get constructive criticism in class by my lecturers, I don't cry then. I go home and then I cry. Like, don't cry in public, but also learn how to take it. At the end of the day, it will make whatever you're working on a lot better. And sometimes you don't have to take it. Sometimes if you're happy and you're happy with what you have, you can leave it. Learn how to take constructive criticism. Then my final artist pet peeve, and the final one for today, is I can't draw because I don't have blank. This usually happens when people say they can't draw because they don't have expensive art supplies, or they don't have expensive paper, or they don't have money to buy a drawing tablet or like something. I can't draw because I don't have blank. It means you just don't want to draw, because we all started drawing on a piece of paper with some crayons or like your HB pencil in class. Do you know how many people drew on the corners of their textbook because that's where they could draw, especially in class when you're doodling? You know what I'm saying? I can't draw because I don't have blank is just an excuse because you do not want to draw. I did all my traditional art with a watercolor set that I'm pretty sure cost 50 Rand. Which is not even that expensive in America. I think that's like $2. And I love that watercolor set because it was perfect. It was perfect. I would draw on just printer paper and a pencil set that we all had to buy for school purposes. You do not want to draw if your excuse is, I can't draw because I don't have blank. I don't have this very expensive art supply. I don't have this very expensive drawing tablet. There's a lot of arguments as to why you can't afford blank. I'm not gonna shame you for not being able to afford whatever blank is, but I don't think that's an excuse for you to stop drawing. And it breaks my heart when artists say this, because we all know how we all started with a piece of paper and a pencil. You can still draw if you go back to that. The world deserves to see what you can create. So please don't stop drawing just because you don't have an expensive art supply. So I hope you really enjoyed listening to me complain for I don't know how long. This video was a lot longer than I intended it to be. I'm trying to do a lot shorter videos because I don't think I'm that interesting yet that you want to listen to me for hours on end. But I hope you really enjoyed coming along for what I consider my art pet peeves, and I hope you like and subscribe. And I really hope to see you all again next week.